Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with Cameron Herold. Cameron is the man behind the exceptional growth of hundreds of companies. As the founder of the COO Alliance and the Invest in Your Leaders course, Cameron is known as the CEO Whisperer and has a reputation for guiding his clients to double their profit and revenue in just 3 years or less. When he's not on stage, Cameron continues to teach through his Second in Command podcast and his best-selling books, including Vivid Visions, Meetings Suck, Free PR, Double Double, and The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. In this week's episode, expect to learn the importance of the second in command, humanizing your work employees, the importance of giving a shit, looking after your nervous system, becoming a situational manager, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we start this week's episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the Life by Design Mastermind. The Life by Design Mastermind is the mastermind for go-getters and high achievers who are looking to create a more successful, fulfilling, and balanced life by design. If you're serious about transforming your life, achieving your goals, and living a life on your terms, then the Life by Design is your golden ticket. Head over to the show notes and click on the link for more details about the program. Cameron Herold, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Blake, thanks for having me.
I think you're baby bathwater number 13 of the guests, and there's plenty to come, which is awesome. And every one of them has given so many juicy insights and wisdom, and so many valuable downloads for our listeners. Can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of who you are and what has got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I actually met one of the founders of Baby Bathwater in a lobby up in a hotel in Whistler one day. And that's where Hollis and I met like 8 years ago. And that began the love affair with me and Baby Bathwater. I was groomed as an entrepreneur. I was raised in a family of entrepreneurs. To this day, my brother, my sister, and myself have all run our own companies for between 15 and 25 years. I have built a number of companies where I played the second in command. Most notably, it was the fourth company that I built as the second in command was called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And we took that company from 14 employees to 3,100 employees in 6 years, where I was the COO, from 2 million to 106 million, ended up in 4 countries, 330 cities. And I'd engineered that entire growth. I ran everything except IT and finance. But that was the fourth company that I'd built. After doing that, I started getting asked by all kinds of companies to coach them, typically real businesses between 50 and 500 employees. I've coached over 100 of those real companies. The biggest ones I coached the CEO and the second in command of Sprint, which was the 82nd largest company in the US, coached them for 18 months, where I was actually teaching them how to become more entrepreneurial and prepare for an exit or a merger, which they did with T-Mobile. I also coached a monarchy. They owned the country of Qatar. And again, this was like real business coaching, right? The world's kind of littered with coaches, but I was actually in there in the trenches coaching tech companies, lots that had big exits. 6 years ago, I started something called the COO Alliance, which was the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command, because we had all these groups for entrepreneurs like Baby Bathwater, Vistage, Master, YPO, EO, et cetera. But there was nowhere for that second in command. Recently launched a group called the Ops Spot. And I've also written 6 books that are on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. And then lastly, I've also been paid to speak in 28 countries, and I've been paid to speak on every single continent. 2 years ago, I got paid to speak in Antarctica to a group of CEOs. So that's me.
Beautiful. Well said. So based on...
And I'm a father of 2 amazing kids that are 20 and 22, and we're super happily married to a great wife, Ashley.
And living a very nomadic lifestyle at the moment as well, which I was fascinated by prior to jumping on this call. Based on the amount of coaching you've done, and you mentioned their second in command as well, and the work that you've done around that, what are you seeing as the biggest hurdles within organizations based on your experience?
One is focus, where I think it's really hard for the CEO, especially because most entrepreneurial CEOs, very different from the hired gun CEO, but the founder entrepreneurial CEOs are very often ADD, bipolar, like lots of the ideas, the big shiny objects. So it's an ability to stay focused is tough for many entrepreneurs. Secondly, is an ability to actually grow people. I think a lot of entrepreneurial CEOs don't have the skill sets to actually grow teams. I was very lucky to have grown up in a franchise organization where we had to actually recruit, hire, and train 800 franchisees every year. And then they had to recruit, hire, and train 8,000 house painters in 6 weeks. So we had to build an 8,800 person company every year. And I was in the top 30 people of that group. So I was very lucky to get trained in a lot of stuff that most entrepreneurial companies are very deficient in. I think thirdly is probably just a real understanding of the economics of a business, truly understanding cash flow and forecasting and budgets and how the P&L actually works and how to really understand. I think digital marketing companies understand it much, much better than the old world offline businesses ever did.
What do you see? So you mentioned one of the struggles there is growing people. What exactly do you mean by that? And how, when you come into an organization, do you do things differently?
So I've always visualized, probably because I started in a house painting company, I've always visualized managers like they're climbing up two long 40-foot extension ladders that are right beside each other. Right. So you picture these two ladders right beside each other. And if you ever climbed a ladder, when you get to the middle, it kind of sways. Well, imagine if your left hand and left foot were climbing up one ladder, and right beside it, your right hand and right foot were climbing up the other ladder. You'd have to climb very slowly. Well, the left ladder is skills. The right ladder is confidence. And our job as leaders is to grow our employees' skills and grow their confidence and grow their skills and grow their confidence. But what we tend to do is we tend to keep throwing more on their plate, showing them all the stuff they're screwing up on. We don't praise them enough. We don't thank them enough. We don't show gratitude enough. So the ladder, the confidence ladder is shaky, or we don't really understand situational leadership and proper coaching, and we don't run proper one-on-one coaching sessions. And we're often kind of like delegating in an autocratic way instead of what I like to do is flip the org chart upside down where the CEO is at the bottom supporting people. So what we end up is this shaky ladder of confidence and then skills that are shaky. You think about most entrepreneurs and most leaders, they all do job interviews. They all hire people, but most of them have never had more than 5 minutes training on how to do one. And I talked to a CEO recently. He said, I've interviewed and hired 200 people. And I said, but have you ever had any training? He said, no. I said, then maybe you've done all 200 interviews wrong. And he went, holy shit. Like we would never send our kid off to play little league baseball or rugby or cricket without teaching them the basic skills, because they'd come home from baseball and go, Daddy, baseball sucks. It's like, no, Johnny, you suck at baseball. But what we do with our managers and leaders is we send them out into the business to do interviews and run meetings and coach people and delegate in time, and they have no idea how to do it. So that's where I think most companies are very, very deficient. When you get to a larger organization like mid-size, where you have a true HR team and a true team of actual leaders who have really built companies, they tend to be able to develop people. But in that smaller to medium-sized companies, kind of the 1 employee to maybe 500 employee zone, we tend to be horribly deficient there, which is why business is difficult, because business is actually very easy.
What system would you recommend, or what process would you recommend, to bring into an organization to help navigate that confidence that you speak of, or the lack of praise that some people, like where would someone start, even if they were thinking, okay, what's a bite-sized bit that I can implement into my business, or how can I show up a little bit better to bring that praise and confidence?
If we think of the confidence ladder, first, let's flip the org chart upside down. Let's actually draw your org chart with the entrepreneur, the CEO at the bottom, supporting the leadership team who are supporting the man, almost like an inverted pyramid, right? Supporting the managers who are supporting the frontline employees who are supporting the customers. And then if you visualize your org chart that way, your job is to support people, to help them, right? Not to hold them accountable and manage them. Fortune magazine asked me, how do you hold your people accountable? And I said, I don't, I hire accountable people. So if we flip the org chart, that's number one. Secondly is to remember that anytime you give someone a new project or you set a new goal, you should at least be celebrating or saying thank you for one at minimum, preferably 2 that you just completed or got done. So if you set 3 new goals, say thank you or praise people for 3 to 6 goals or projects or things that just got done. If you show people 3 problems with the website, find 6 things to praise people about. It's kind of like the shit sandwich, right? 2 strokes for 1 poke from the 1-minute manager. And a real world example of this is, are you married? Are you with a partner?
I'm with a partner, yeah.
Okay. So how often do you tell them that you love them?
Most days, I would say.
Not once a quarter?
I'd be in a lot of trouble if I did.
Yeah, because anytime that we have an argument, we rely on the thousands of times we said, I love you, or thousands of times we said, thank you, or thousands of times we paid attention or showed gratitude. And so what happens is, as entrepreneurs and as leaders, we often forget to put deposits into that same love bucket. And all we're doing is beating people up all day long. So they tend to feel like, well, we don't love them. Oh, I told you 6 weeks ago I love you. Yeah, but you gave me 17 more projects in the last 6 weeks. So it's really stacking up and love bombing our employees with gratitude and praise around projects, around goals, and around core values. That would be the second. The third is to truly actually give a shit about them as human beings, their problems, their insecurities, their fears, their home life, their bucket list, their joys, to actually really know them as people, not their dog's name and their birthday, like to really know them. And so that if you care about them more than anybody else cares about them, their confidence is strong and they're going to feel okay to come to you and say, I have problems. And they'll go through brick walls for you to build your company. And then I think lastly, it's to build a no blame environment where we kind of create a mantra from Michael Gerber's E-Myth that people don't fail, systems fail. That if something goes wrong, it's not your fault. It's a system that was broken or missing. So it allows people to feel confident to say, I'm scared, or I don't know how to do this, or something broke, because you're not going to get in trouble for spilling the juice. We're just going to teach you how to pour juice better, right? It's that kind of creating that structure in that environment. But those are soft skills of leadership that a lot of people never even think about.
The Gottman Institute, which is a relationship organization, spoke about a 5-to-1 ratio of positive reinforcement to, whether that's criticism, feedback, etc. Is that the type of ratio that you would consider as a much healthier one in a organization?
Right. Yeah. If they go 5-to-1, I'm saying 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, 5-to-1's like, that's amazing. When I was the second in command at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we became the number 2 company in Canada to work for. And the 2 prior years to that, we were ranked number 1 to work for in British Columbia, which is the far western province of the country. We were essentially a cult, but we were love bombing our employees constantly. And we still fired people and we still drove hard. I mean, we did 6 consecutive years of 100% revenue growth. It was hardcore, drive hard, push hard, but everybody knew we loved them. Everybody knew, like, it was constant high fives and praise and, showing gratitude. Our daily huddle started with good news and praise, right? To continually build off that. So yeah, I think that's amazing. The CEO's title should be Chief Energizing Officer, not Chief Executive Officer, right? What are you doing when you show up at the office every day? And I teach all of our members of the COO Alliance this as well. When you walk into the office or when you show up on Zoom or in Slack, what are you doing to raise the energy of the group today? What are you doing to raise the energy and enthusiasm of your group today? Even when I was coaching Marcelo Claret, who is the CEO of Sprint, he's on the board of Google, the board of WeWork, the board of SoftBank. He owns the Miami soccer team with David Beckham. Like, he's a major player, right? A billionaire. When I was coaching Marcelo, I said to him one day, I need you to start sending videos, Loom videos to your employees and physical videos off your iPhone to your employees. Just do this. Like, when he owns the Bolivian soccer team too, I said, you would never let your coach yell at people and drive them hard and push them hard because they need to have the high fives and the cheering them on. You're this 6'7" tough leader, but you're also like, you have this crazy smile and you're goofy and you're fun, but they don't see that over the phone. They don't see that on your meeting calls. You need to do this once in a while and send a video over to humanize yourself. That was a massive shift at Sprint to humanize this massive CEO.
What got you in? I'm loving this. What got you into? I can sense your passion, which is awesome. What got you into this? Did you look at your former self and realize that you weren't as encouraging and praising? Did you have a boss that was like? What led you down this path?
I was groomed as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, I grew up in I had a very weird childhood. My dad was an entrepreneur. So like every Christmas and every family vacation, we would come home from vacation. We would go from the airport to one of my dad's gas stations or his office to check in before we'd get to the house. I was listening to my dad talk about work. I was recording radio interview spots for my dad when I was 9 years old. I was going into his office and I watched him and saw him and he would talk to me. He would show us the waitress or the waiter or the busboy or the person at the car shop. Like, he was always talking about service. And so we saw that. And my dad was a very hard driving, pretty bipolar, tough guy on his people, but they loved him because he gave a shit. I think he hired every single person that ever worked for his company from a program, like a make work program, like hire a kid off a street, hire an indigenous First Nations person. Like, everyone he hired was a program. Like, they're all special needs. Fuck, they went through brick walls for him. And he was like, yeah, I get a good deal, but like, I care about her. She's like, he had this strange, incredible care. And that always stuck with me.
What do you
But here's the thing. None of this shit matters. This is just what we do to make money. We're all just walking each other home. Like we're all going to die in a blip, right? So we may as well have fun along the way and be a good person. And because if you are, then then it's like, wow, as a capitalist, I'm like, if I'm really nice to you, you're going to work harder. Fuck, that's easy. And it's more fun.
It seems obvious. It seems really obvious the way that you speak to it. So is it conditioning? Like, when you go into these companies and you see this very robotic dictatorship, like, is it just because that's how people did it before? What's stopping people from really humanizing these companies?
I think a lot of leaders are stuck on the treadmill. They're stuck on the kind of, rat flywheel or whatever. They're not detaching from work and taking vacations and talking to others. They're not in mastermind communities. So they don't know, right? They're just, they grew up where they didn't see it, or they're not taking care of their health and they're so stressed and wound up that that's why their marriages are blowing up or why their relationships are blowing up. That stuff is endemic as well. But you mentioned earlier, Jesse Elder. Do I know? Of course I know Jesse. We're in 3 different mastermind communities, right? Jesse is this very heart-centered, loving, amazing human. Well, did he learn to do that? Yeah, probably. But he also surrounds himself with people who are like that. Here's the thing. I'm not stupid. I really struggled with the traditional school system. I got very poor grades in school, very poor grades in high school. I went to the only university that accepted me and I got very poor grades there. I had to cheat in most of my classes. I paid TAs to give me exams before the final. I paid people to do my assignments for me. But I realized, I'm hiring an accountant to do my accounting work. I'm freelancing. I found the shortcuts to get through, and no one's ever asked me for my transcript anyway. So it didn't matter if I cheated. And even if I cheated, my grades were so shitty that it didn't matter anyway. My point is that I knew I'd never be smart enough to figure all this out. So I had to do it the easy way. Well, it's like the fly trying to get out the window. If you keep banging your head on the window, you're not going to get through. When you step back, there's a door. So I just looked for the path of least resistance. So it's easier for me to love bomb people than it is to hold them accountable. It's easier for me to hire the right people than manage the wrong people. It's easier for me to grow their skills than do the work. My to-do list needs to get done, but not by me. No one's to-do list has their name on it. It's just stuff that needs to get done that they don't think about delegating, or they say, I can't delegate it to Fred because he doesn't have the skills. Fuck, delegate it to Fred and grow his skills. And then you can give him more. Well, he's nervous. Then grow his confidence. But everything that we have on our list can get done by somebody else if we focus on growing their skills and confidence. And if we actually want to have a life and want to have connections with friends and family and our kids and our spouse. But so many entrepreneurs are struggling with all that they get the only good feelings in life from running their business. So they'd rather work 80-hour weeks than go home to a spouse or kids, or they have no friends or hobbies anymore, right? Whereas I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, give me 7 more countries and 6 more bucket lists and 6 more hikes to do. And I'm like, let's go do this.
Was there a point where that changed? Did you feel it at some stage that you were part of that collective that are just grinding away? Or have you always found, what changed?
Well, I had in October of 2000, I had July of 2000, one of my employees, we had a 900 person company, tapped me on the shoulder and said, are you okay? And I turned around to say yes. And I collapsed on the floor of the elevator, shaking and sobbing. And I was having a nervous breakdown. Went to the doctor 2 months later and just to get a physical, because I was buying a house and needed insurance and I needed to get a physical or whatever to get insurance. I don't know what the deal was. And he goes, what's going on? I go, not much. I have this weird metallic taste at the back of my neck. It's kind of like I'm chewing on aluminum foil, as you would say. Like it has this weird metallic taste. He goes, what's going on? I go, not much. I said, we sold the company, but the stock market crashed. This was 2000. So the NASDAQ crashed by 78%. Our $64 million company that we were selling is now worth $3 million. I just got married. I'm not really in love with my wife. I found out that we're now pregnant. We're buying a house. My mom is terminal with cancer and I'm moving from Seattle back to Vancouver, but everything's pretty good. And he looked at me. He's like, what? And those are all true. Then he gave me this checklist that you fill out this checklist. And if you get 150 points on the checklist, you have a 50% chance of a heart attack. 250 points, you have a 90% chance. I had 435 points on the checklist. And I was 35 years old and I was clinically redlining. So what happened to me was I had burned out with stress. I weighed 42 pounds heavier than I do today. I was smoking and drinking a ton and eating in all the best restaurants, but not taking care of myself or my life so I don't think I was showing up as a good leader back in that couple of years. I think I was a very stressed, head down, driven, probably frenetic, and then burnout. I was written up in the Wall Street Journal that October as one of 4 supernovas. His career's flamed out with stress. And it was because I didn't take care of myself. So that began the years of running, and ran a couple, half marathons, and stopped smoking and got my shit together.
What changed? So I think you said that was in 2000. What changed for you in that kind of 2000 to 2005 period? Because obviously you had to make some changes. And how is that different to how you show up and what you value now?
2000 to 2007 was when I was the second in command for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So I jumped in and joined my best friend, Brian, to help him grow his company. So we went on to a very, very rapid growth phase, but I cared about my health more. I was in a mastermind community called the Entrepreneurs Organization. So I was opening up and being vulnerable and connecting with people. And I also realized that there was no way I could do it all because we were growing too quickly. So it just had to be growing people. So in fact, all of the content that's in it's called Invest in Your Leaders, the course that I launched, it's an online course for managers and ops people. All 12 of the modules in that course are what I taught all of the leadership team and managers and employees at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I created all the skills to grow them. I think that was the transition point for me at really seeing that if I grow people, because I couldn't do it. We were just like, you wake up in the morning, it was like 3 more people. I remember one day I was in the lobby and there were 3 computers, and I turned to our IT guy. I said, "Hey, can you get those computers set up?" He goes, "Yeah, I got it." And then like that afternoon, the computers were gone, and I showed up the next morning and there were 3 computers sitting in the lobby. I'm like, "Didn't I just show you those yesterday?" He goes, "Yeah, I did. Those are today's computers." He goes, "We're hiring 3 a day." Oh shit. We were hiring 900 people that year.
Yes, that's a lot. Yeah. So when you think of this growing process of growing your people, where do you think people are going wrong? Is it a lack of a roadmap? Is it lack of time invested?
Yeah.
Is it the combination?
At first it's not knowing that it's important. Most Gen Y, actually, the number one thing they care about is a company that has purpose. Number 2 is the ability to grow in their career. So if you grow their skills, they're going to be happy and stay. Most leaders don't know that. They also don't know what the skills are. They don't know how to teach the skills. If I walked you through the normal adult learning cycle, it would be all new to you. Well, it's all new to anybody who's listening. So when leaders are deficient in how to train and how to coach and how to run one-on-ones and how to grow people, then it's hard to do it. And then when they don't focus on it because they're too busy, that's hard. So it just becomes kind of like this almost self-fulfilling prophecy. Like it drives me bonkers when I'll show up at a mastermind community like Baby Bathwater and people are, "Oh, business is so hard." Business is fucking simple. Like have a good product, charge a lot for it so everybody wins. Like right? But they hire shitty people. They have bad job postings. They waste money on random things. They're not that focused. So it's not that difficult. It's difficult to grow, to be SpaceX, but it's not difficult to run the normal $10 million company.
So one of the things you mentioned there, and I remember listening to...
And by the way, I just mentioned SpaceX. Elon's brother, Kimball, worked for me back in 1993. I was a reference for Elon and Kimball in their first round of funding for Zip2. And so I trained Kimball. I hired and trained Kimball on all of the skills that are in my Invest in Your Leaders course. I also trained his cousin, Peter Reeve, who went on to build Solar City. Like this shit works.
I didn't actually know. I've never heard of Kimball, but I'm going to do some research after.
Oh, Kimball and Elon built Zip2 and sold it in 1997 for $315 million in cash. That was the initial money prior to Elon joining PayPal. He'd already cashed out of Zip2. I was a reference for them. College Pro Painters is written up in their first book on Elon because they actually wanted to back Kimball with his management and operational experience because Elon had dropped out of aeronautical engineering and never done anything and was dreaming so far ahead of the curve doing this online mapping company for newspapers that they didn't even understand it. So they backed Kimball with his business experience. They had one employee. Yeah. Kimball called me that night and he goes, "What did you tell them?" I'm like, "Did I screw up?" He goes, "No, we asked for 600,000. They gave us 3 million. What did you tell them?" I'm like, "I just told them the truth." I said, "You're really smart."
Brilliant.
I didn't even know they were called a merchant bank back in the day. I didn't even know what a merchant bank was.
On 93, well ahead of their time. So one of the things you mentioned there, and I was listening to a podcast, I can't remember which one it was, from a guy who might work with Gallup Institute, who obviously do a lot of stuff around organizations. And the 3 things that he said were fundamental to retaining your staff was purpose, e.g. knowing that what they're doing is influencing, they're not just a cog in the system. Mastery, the ability to consistently grow and evolve. And the third one was autonomy, not being micromanaged and overlooked with everything. Those were the three things that stood out the most, which you mentioned.
And the first two I said, right? Having purpose. So that's alignment with purpose, with core vision, your vivid vision, with your BHAG, that they see meaning and value in the day-to-day. That's kind of like the three guys that are sitting on the sidewalk making bricks. And you ask the first guy, what are you doing? He said, I'm making bricks. I asked the second guy, what are you doing? He goes, I'm making a wall and I get to make the bricks to build the wall. And said the third guy, what are you doing? He said, we're building the Sagrada Familia, the greatest cathedral in Spain, and I get to make the bricks for the left wall of the cathedral. Who sees more value? Like they're both, all three are making bricks, right? So, and then the autonomy part that's really understanding situational leadership, proper delegation, proper one-on-one coaching, and servant leadership, flipping the org chart upside down. It's super not hard, right? It's the same way that we raise our children. You raise children by giving them the skills, raising their confidence, giving them more to do, and stepping back. And then praising them, right? But not helicopter parenting them and keeping them at home until they're 29 years old.
What would you do differently if you were starting over again, knowing what you know about, in particular CEO, but business?
I would hire better, faster. I would delegate more and get stuff off my plate faster. I would use my ears and mouth in the same ratio that God gave them to me, and I'd listen twice as often as I speak. I would probably try to have more fun along the way because I can tend to be focused and serious. And again, none of this shit matters. Like we're all going to die. Like we may as well enjoy the journey and, have a laugh along the way. So I'd probably play music and be silly and try to let my inner kid out more often to play.
Same thing at the moment. So when it comes to second in command, what do you see as the difference between the organizations that do it really well and those that might not do it quite as well?
There's really good alignment. And I wrote about this in the book, The Second in Command. And I've seen this with our COO Alliance members. The companies that are doing it really well have very good alignment with the CEO and COO. So the COO is very clear on the vision, the purpose, the strategy, where we're going as a company, how we got here. They understand the kind of reason for being of the CEO. And the CEO truly understands the plans and the execution of what's happening that the COO is doing to deploy everything. And then they have kind of like the systems for date night and trust, right? Like they really have a good system to be that yin and yang together. I think that's one. They definitely understand the economics of their business, right? They understand, how to spend $1 to make 8 and then have your, your COGS and your gross margin, your overhead. And like they understand that. They understand the marketing and your cash flow conversion and your cost of acquisition and lifetime value. They understand the basic metrics. I spoke to a COO this morning of a pretty large online business. They sell trees. Like they literally sell full grown trees to your door. And I'm like that's complicated as shit, man. Like they FedEx you a tree and you order them all online. They don't have any nurseries or anything. They really have to understand the economics of the business, but he does. He's a former rocket scientist and engineer, and they got like 500 and they're crushing it.
What is COO Alliance and who, kind of obvious, I guess, who it's targeted for, but who's the best fit for COO Alliance?
Yeah, the COO Alliance so we have members from 17 countries. They're all the second in command to the CEO. So it could be COO, sometimes CFO, whatever. As long as you're if I was to retitle it, it'd be called like the second in command society or something, right? So it's really whoever is second in command. You have to do at least 5 million in revenue to qualify. So our average size company is around 42 million. The biggest is around 500-600 million. That's really it. 40% of our members are women. Youngest member is 21, running a 100-person company, and he's legit. Like he's super, super strong, especially with his like integrations of tech and Zapier and AI. He's just like fucking years ahead. He's still learning the wisdom of leadership, but super sharp. And then we've got like a 62-year-old who is very, very sharp on leadership and wisdom, and he's trying to sponge everything he can from the 25-year-old COOs that we have. It's a good group.
And you obviously spoke about kind of delegating, confidence, praise. Is there anything else that stands out to you as really common themes that people are letting themselves down in those roles?
The one key one is situational leadership. And it's a skill that was developed by Dr. Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. The book, The 1 Minute Manager, is all based on the content of situational leadership. It's the number one skill that all of the major companies in the world train their leadership team on. I learned it at College Pro Painters. And then when I was being mentored by the incoming COO at Starbucks, when I was COO at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, he told me that all of the senior people at Starbucks got trained in situational leadership every 3 months. Like they kept getting more training and more role playing and more practicing. So the whole skill of situational leadership is the ability to adapt your leadership style on a project by project or situation by situation basis and person by person. So let's say that I was coaching you on 5 different areas. What's your biggest strength in business?
As in marketing?
Okay. So in marketing, I probably wouldn't give you much advice around marketing because you're really good at it. I probably also wouldn't praise you in marketing because it's kind of like praising a 20-year-old for how well they're walking. But your 1-year-old, when they take 3 steps, you praise the heck out of them, right? So you're gonna change your support, you're gonna change your guidance or your advice on a situation by situation basis, even though it's the same person. Now, if I was training you around classroom teaching, I might get very micromanagey. I might show you exactly how to do it. I might set up the plan. I might tell you what to do. I'd tell you when to check in because you've never done it before. Or I might get into more problem solving. So situational leadership is the training around that skill area to understand how to adapt your style based on the skill level and confidence of each of the projects that each of your reports are working on. And we are woefully not very good at that.
It's fascinating. So when you think about the skills that you've developed, I mean, they could kind of be put under the bracket of business, but they're really people skills, which...
Yeah, it's all the soft skills of leadership.
Yeah.
If I rattled off the 12 skills in my Invest in Your Leaders course, it's all the soft skills of leadership around, well, there's some tactical like delegation or time management, project management. But yeah, leading people, growing people, getting results through people. I've always believed that the leader's core job is to grow people. So it's all around that.
What's the biggest resistance?
And what's nice is that if I'm growing people, I don't have to be good at using technology. They do, right? I don't have to be good at marketing. They do. I got to be good at hiring and aligning and inspiring and getting out of their way. They have to be good at all the tactical stuff.
Do you find the growing of people, is there any resistance, with these managers and CEOs and CIOs when it comes to growing people for fear of losing good people, or can they hold a really clean energy when they're growing people with the best interest?
Yeah, I talked to one of our members about the COO Alliance about that. He was looking at putting 15 of his people into the Invest in Your Leaders course. And he said, what if I train them all and they quit? And I said, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? Like, would you rather have 15 people that don't know how to do this stuff and they're running your business for the next 2 years? Or would you rather train them and risk they might leave? Because the reality is some people will leave. Gen Y leaves. But for the time they're with me, I'd rather they have more skills. Now, if I create a good environment and I'm growing their skills and giving them responsibility and giving them autonomy and they see purpose, I give them this, they're not leaving. That's what they're looking for. They're only going to leave a shitty company that doesn't take care of them and doesn't grow them and doesn't inspire them. But you can actually get way more done with less people faster when you create the right environment and give them the skills and the tools to do their job.
Mate, this has been unbelievable. I'm listening to this a couple of times just to take everything on board, but I've really enjoyed everything that you've had to say. For those that want to find out more about COO Alliance, your books, your work, where's the best spot for them to find you?
Yeah, definitely check out the COO Alliance. If you're running a company more than 5 million, plug your second in command into that for sure. Check out the Ops Spot. So it's the Ops Spot. And that's where you put anybody who works in like marketing or any manager role. Anyone who works in operations, director, manager, VP should join the Ops Spot. And the founder price on that's only $249 a person for the year. It's a rounding error. All 6 of my books are on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. And then I have a second in command podcast where we've interviewed about 310 second in commands of really great brands from all over the world too.
Awesome. Cam, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mike.